where the moon lights.
An excellent day for an exorcism.
I'm your number one fan.
Hey up, and welcome back to Rate Scary. If you are watching on YouTube, you will see that I am probably giving a little bit of a hint as to what I'm going to be talking about today. If you are listening on your podcast player, you won't have a clue what I'm talking about, but I am wearing some heart-eye shaped sunglasses because yes, I have been to see the latest release, Heart Eyes. So this episode is going to be dedicated to talking all things Heart Eyes Killer. I am going to switch my glasses, however, for something slightly more comical so I can see what I'm doing much better. So this is a bonus episode in addition to your weekly diving into a subgenre episode. I do need to warn you, there are major spoilers ahead for the new film Heart Eyes. If you haven't seen it yet and you don't want it to be spoiled, please go away, watch the film, and then come back once you've seen it. As normal, I'm going to run first of all through the story and then we'll dig into my actual review of the film. So here we go. So for the past few years, a serial killer known as Heart Eyes has moved from different cities, killing multiple couples on Valentine's Day. And in the present year, he moves to Seattle and murders a couple at a winery and then at a spa. And we have detectives Jeanette Shaw and her partner Hobbs. They're out on the case and they find a wedding ring engraved with the initials JS. In the city, we see Ali, who is a pitch designer for a jewellery company, and she's recently broken up with her boyfriend, and she's been ridiculed for a commercial that she wrote involving doomed couples. It's seen as offensive. She features couples like Romeo and Juliet, and it's offensive because of all the murders that have been going on. So her boss, Crystal, orders her to work with a very famous designer by the name of Jay Simmons, whom Ali encountered earlier that day at the coffee shop. They had a very sweet meet cute, very clearly were into each other, and Jay suggests that the best way for them to work is for the two of them to have dinner that evening, get some inspiration, and Ali's best friend Monica helps pick out an outfit, sticking the outfit on her credit card because she's got a sugar daddy. So Ali and Jay meet at the restaurant later that night and the conversation gets a little bit heated because they question each other on why they are single, what are their backstories. Jay decides to leave, but Ali follows, and as she sees her ex approaching her with his new girlfriend, she kisses Jay to try and show her ex-boyfriend up and to not seem completely pathetic on Valentine's Day. And we see that from a distance, the Heart Eyes killer is watching them. Now, Jay and Ali kind of reconcile and they decide to take a cab to her apartment, but she realizes that she's left her keys somewhere, so Jay helps her break in. But he cuts his hand in the process, so she brings him in to try and clean him up. And in the process, we find that the Heart Eyes killer is in the apartment and he attacks them. And then he kills their cab driver and chases them, knocking Jay out in the process. And Ali runs away from the scene. She ends up on a carousel before the police come, like a funfair carousel. And the police arrest Jay for the murders, despite him claiming innocence. Now at the station, we see Detectives Shaw and Hobbs, yes, they are their names, pointing out how Jay's initials match the ring that they had found at an earlier crime scene, JS. And Shaw points out that he was in the same locations as the Heart Eyes killer in his previous attacks. Meanwhile, Ali is waiting in the lobby of the police station with the desk clerk, and she encounters someone called David, who is an IT guy. He's working on the computers at the station. He leaves, and the lights go out, and the Heart Eyes killer kills the clerk and attacks Ali. Detective Shaw confronts the killer but disappears, and then Detective Hobbs is killed. In the process, Ali manages to rescue Jay and they flee to a drive-in theatre where there's some Valentine's romantic film being played, and the Heart Eyes killer slaughters several filmgoers. They decide that they started this, so they're going to end it and they're going to confront the Heart Eyes killer. And in the scuffle, Jay manages to stab him and they take off his mask and reveal some bloke. and the two of them are seen to by paramedics. Shaw arrives with a hurt arm, and she offers Jay a ride home, and he accepts, reassuring Ali that she's not his type. At home, Ali realizes that she is falling for Jay, and on the phone to her best friend, she decides that she's going to go and find him at the airport. However, she can't find him, and Heart Eyes calls her mobile phone, telling her to come to the St. Valentine's Chapel to rescue Jay. She does this, and she arrives, and Heart Eyes killer unmasks himself as David, the IT guy who she saw earlier. We then get a second reveal, because there is a second Heart Eyes killer, and that is Detective Shaw, who is in a relationship with David. And when questioned about, well, who was the guy who we stabbed and unmasked earlier, they tell Ali and Jay that that was a fanboy. He was called Eli and really is nothing to do with them, because the two of them have committed every murder, switching out the costume each time. And Shaw, in particular, attacked them at the apartment. David killed the cab driver and the couple at the winery, which is where he lost his ring, which has Jeanette Shaw, JS, her initials on the inside of it. And their motivation is that they have a kink for killing together, which harks back to a statement that Jeanette made at the very first crime scene. She said, this is more than just killing. This guy has a kink for it. What then proceeds is they give Ali the choice of either shooting herself with a gun that they hand her, which has one bullet in it, or she can shoot Jay. But what she decides to do is shoot Shaw instead, hitting Jay in the process. So she shoots through Jay into Shaw, and the two couples fight. Ali basically decapitates Shaw on a statue, and Jay shoots David with his own arrow. We then cut to a year later, and Ali has decided that she is going to return to med school, and the couple go to a drive-in movie, and Jay asks Ali to move in with him, and in return she proposes and he accepts. But then we see in a mid-credit scene, Ali gets a mysterious phone call in the same threatening tone as the call from Heart Eyes, which is then revealed to be Monica, who was photographing the proposal. The phone call then ominously hangs up in the same way as earlier when the couple at the winery's photographer was murdered. And then we close. So, before we get into some of the details, it's worth mentioning the cast that we have here. So we've got a lead cast, Ali and Jay. Ali is played by Olivia Holt, and Jay is played by Mason Gooding. I think that they had some really great on-screen chemistry. I enjoyed the moments when they were on screen together much more than actually the moments when they were apart, especially Olivia as Ali when she was on her own. I found her quite irritating and jarring, if I'm honest, especially with some of the comedy that she tried to portray was just a bit too cheesy, I think. We have Gigi Zumbardo as Monica, Ali's friend. She is providing the typical best friend comedic relief. We have Devon Sauer as Detective Hobbs, which is a nice little cameo from Devon, even though he's in it for about 10 minutes in total, if that. And then we have Jordana Brewster as Detective Jeanette Shaw, who is stunning, and I thought she was great, but I don't think we saw enough of her on screen, especially to justify her motives as a killer, which I'm going to come on to in a minute. First of all, I think it's worth referencing that this comes from director Josh Rubin. He's previously directed a number of TV series and shorts. He did do a film from 2020 called Scare Me and Werewolves Within from 2021. Both films that actually I've never seen or heard of. It was only when looking at his IMDb that I saw those. But most notably, I spotted that he played Brad in Creep Tapes from the back end of last year, and I didn't know that. So I thought he did a good job of the directing, in fairness. But again, nothing that I would particularly write home about. So what do I think of this film? I totally get what it was that they were trying to do with this film. It's a mashing of two genres. We've got this hallmark romantic comedy that are very common at this time of year, coupled with your typical slasher film. And I think in terms of those two things, they did a great job of portraying that really typical rom-com that really mushy level of romantic comedy that actually I am a fan of. Despite being a horror fan, I do love a rom-com. It was very self-aware of what it was trying to be in that respect, and I think it did a really great job of poking fun at that in moments. And then with the slasher side of things, I think it had some really great nods to slashers, like Scream being the obvious one because this comes from Spyglass, but then also Friday the 13th, absolutely, like Jason Voorhees, Heart Eyes Killer uses a machete in a lot of scenes. Also, elements of Michael Myers, as we see a lot of shots of the Heart Eyes Killer looking through the holes in his mask. But I think when you bring those two genres together with this film, it felt like something was missing. And I think there's a really, really fine line when it comes to self-aware films. If you get it right, then you've got a hit like Scream. And if you get it wrong, then you fall into scary movie territory completely unintentionally and accidentally. And it felt like it was trying too hard to be a current day Scream, but it was missing that excellent direction from Wes Craven and that wit that Kevin Williamson has that he provided with the original Scream. And instead, those moments that were supposed to be comedic ended up feeling clumsy. And instead of it feeling self-aware, with the mushing together of those two genres, it didn't just feel like something was missing. It felt like lazy writing. And I hate to say it, but it did. And then the kills, we had a great couple of kills right at the beginning of the film. We've got this couple that are getting engaged, which are so unbearable that you hope that they get killed, which I think is a great way to set out the film. We've got the guy getting shot in the head with an arrow, and then the girl getting compressed in a wine press. Super gory. I thought it was excellent given the setting. And then we get a couple of really great kills at the end with a beheading in a church and a tire iron through someone's head. But then in the middle, there's just a load of meh. And I think that's partly where I lost some of the love that I should have had for this film. The biggest contributor to the love that I lost for this film, however, because it did have me up until a certain point, there are two things. So I'm going to start off first of all with the Heart Eyes Killer, because initially when I saw the trailers for the killer and for the film, I didn't mind his design. Like, yeah, it's very gimmicky with the actual heart eyes, and I get what they were going with. It's almost quite similar to the killer Johnny from In a Violent Nature. But the thing that I hated about the killer was that they gave his mask a slightly yellowy tinge. And I know it's supposed to look like the emoji, but did we really need to make it yellow as well? Like, I know it's a really small gripe, but it just gave me the ick. The fact that they've decided that the mask should be yellow, like, I get it. It's called Heart Eyes. It's the Heart Eyes Killer. We didn't need to colour the mask yellow as well. Like, we're not stupid. We know it's the emoji. So it is such a small thing. But when I noticed that it was yellow, I was like, really? Fuck's sake. The biggest thing that ticked me off, though, is the ending. Honestly, fuck this ending. Fuck it. I'm going to go as far as saying it's one of the most wet fart, fall flat, stupid, annoying endings that I have ever seen in a horror film. And I have seen some stupid horror films. Like, it was predictable that there was going to be two killers. It's a reference to Scream. I'm fine with that. I was also fine to a point that one of the killers was going to be David, because he was introduced halfway through the film and then we never saw him again until right at the end when he was revealed as a killer. Like I said, I'm fine with that. It's another two things regarding the killer reveal that I really, really take issue with. And this is what comes back to my point about lazy writing. So number one, it's stated that they have a kink for killing. And actually, I'm cool with that if we had evidence of more killing, but they only do it on Valentine's. So what are they doing for the rest of the year? Like, a motive for offing happy couples due to a killer hating Valentine's as a result of like some horrendous breakup, that would make sense. But if it is a kink, if these two are getting off on killing people, why are they not doing it all year round? Surely, if they got off on it that much, they're not going to withhold themselves all year until it comes to Valentine's, because they could be going to weddings. Like, weddings happen all year round. Why are they not offing happy couples at weddings? Why is that off limits, but Valentine's is fine? There's not enough motive for them to only kill on Valentine's. Doesn't make sense. And then the main thing that I take issue with is that there is that third killer. So we see Heart Eyes killed in the police station when Jay stabs him. They unmask him, and it's later revealed by the actual Heart Eyes killers, David and Jeanette, that it was just a fanboy of theirs, and he's called Eli. When are we introduced to Eli? When are we introduced to this fanboy? Like, that is the laziest piece of bullshit writing I have ever seen in a film. Like, I know that the writers will have wanted a twist. They'll have wanted to create the misdirection that people love with slashers, especially with Scream films, because they're also a bit of a whodunit. But including a character as the killer who we've never been introduced to with no motivation is bollocks. And it annoyed me so much, because up until that point, I was probably sitting at around about a 3.5 star rating, which I think is fair for what it is. Like, it's a rom-com slasher, but it immediately took it down to a 2 for me. And the more that I've thought about it, the more that I've sat with this film and I've played it over in my mind, the more I want to drop my score further. And I think that would be unfair, but I keep seeing all these amazing comments about the film, but I'm like, it does not make sense. And I would love someone to tell me that I'm wrong. Please, someone spell it out for me, and I will retract my 2 out of 5 score and I will bump it back up again. But at what point are we introduced to Eli as a killer? And what is his motive, other than being a fanboy of the Heart Eyes killer? Tell me that and I will bump my score up. Because I think a true measure for me when I rate films is, first of all, would I watch it again? Because I like to start with like a 5 out of 5. If I would never watch it again, then immediately I can knock it down a point, maybe a 1.5. And then my other measure is, if it happened to be on TV while I'm scrolling channels, would I watch it, even for just a little bit? And the answer with this film is no. I don't want to put myself through this film again. And I can confirm it's my first horror flop of this year, which is disappointing because I really, really wanted to love this film. So there we have it. I'm sorry that this has been a grumpy review. It has, in fairness, like my reviews for the films that have come out so far this year, I've been really pleasantly surprised with the releases that we've had. And like I said, I don't think this film was terrible. It had a lot of good elements to it, but there's no way, based on how I feel about it at the moment, I can score it any higher. So coming up soon, in case you missed it, actually, I did release an episode this week digging into the details of Crimson Peak with my friend Sam from Horror Halloween and Home. So please go back and watch that if you are into gothic horror or Crimson Peak. And next week, I'm going to be going into the details of Bram Stoker's Dracula with my buddy Celebro, who also joined me on the Nosferatu episode. And also, don't forget, on YouTube, every single week, every Wednesday, I give you a 10-minute roundup of the latest horror news. So make sure you don't miss that either. I really hope you've enjoyed this episode, despite me going off on a major rant. So please do stick around. Don't let that put you off. Take a watch or listen of my previous episodes and catch up on the subgenre of gothic horror. And if you want to follow along with everything that I'm up to, you can follow me on my socials, either at Rate Scary on Instagram and YouTube, or at Scary Zara Mary on pretty much every other social media platform going. TikTok, Instagram, Blue Sky, and Threads. And if you are listening on your podcast player, I would love it if you could drop a 5-star review, because it helps massively. I am still so new to this. I am only 8 weeks in, I think, to doing these podcast episodes. And if you are watching on YouTube, if you could hit the like button, drop a comment, just introduce yourself. I'll chat to you in the comments. That would be lovely. But in the meantime, silly with you, son. I'll see you soon.
They're coming to get you, Barbara.
I guess everyone's entitled to one good scare, huh?
I'll be right back.
Game over. It's all for you.
Beware the moonlights.
An excellent day for an exorcism.
I'm your number one fan.